Hey all, we've got a song entitled "And the Band Played Waltzing Matilda." It's a song written by Eric Bogle in 1971, and it talks about the horrors and the legacy of war. In particular, it talks about the Gallipoli campaign back in 1915, which is essentially founded the Anzac tradition, Anzac being Australian and New Zealand Army Corps. I'll leave a link in the description below to a Wikipedia article for those that aren't familiar with the campaign, so you can read about Anzac Day and what it means to us Aussies. I do know that I get a lot of folk who do not live in Australia, from Europe and the UK and the USA. So by all means, have a little look at the history of this song. It's a song that talks about the personal impact and trauma of war, and what it means to veterans when they come back home. So the words tell their own story. I won't talk any more about it. But let me bring up the lyrics here, the song sheet. It's a song sheet that goes over 2 pages, so you do have the challenge of possibly turning a page or getting onto page 2 in time to carry on the song. That being said, let's have a look at the top line. We've got G, C, G, and then it goes to E minor. So the only comment that I'll make about, from a sort of a coaching perspective here, is that transition from the G to the E minor, which I do often talk about. So if you play a normal G chord, right, a traditional E minor has you moving all of your fingers over there into that sort of diagonal line shape for the E minor. Okay, but another way of doing it from a G is to leave your G in place and put your pinky finger over the top onto string 3, fret 4 to give you that diagonal shape. It's overriding what your index finger is doing on string 3, but that doesn't matter. So just leave the G in place, pinky over the top, and you've got your E minor. Lift it again, and you're back to G. Okay. The other thing to say is that you do occasionally at the end of a line see the little top hat symbol and the little tilde after the chord. That just means strum it one time and let it ring on. A little bit of a pause at the end of the line before we kick off onto that next line. At the end of the song, we've got drops into the familiar lyric and tune of Waltzing Matilda, and it does slow at the end. So just be on the lookout for that. Just follow me and all will be fine. Okay, so without any further ado, as I always say, why don't we play the song? It's in 3/4 time. I'll count you in a couple of bars, and then we'll kick off with G for a little bit of vamping in G. It's not written on the sheet, but we'll just vamp in G for a little bit. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. Here we go. When I was a young man, I carried me pack, and I lived the free life of a rover. From the Murray's green basin to the dusty outback, well, I waltzed my Matilda all over. Then in 1915, my country said, son, it's time you stopped rambling, there's work to be done. So they gave me a tin hat and they gave me a gun, and they marched me away to the war. And the band played Waltzing Matilda as the ship pulled away from the quay, and amidst all the cheers, the flag waving and tears, we sailed off Suvla Bay. We were butchered like lambs at the slaughter. Johnny Turk, well, he was waiting and he'd primed himself well. He showered us with bullets and he rained us with shell. And in 5 minutes flat, he'd blown us all to hell. Nearly blew us right back to Australia. But the band played Waltzing Matilda. When we stopped to bury our slain, we buried ours and the Turks buried theirs. Then we started all over again. And those that were left, well, we tried to survive in that mad world of blood, death and fire. And for 10 weary weeks I kept myself alive, while around me the corpses piled higher. And then a big Turkish shell knocked me ass overhead, and when I woke up in me hospital bed, I saw what it had done. Well, I wished I was dead. Never knew there was worse things than dying. For I'll go no more waltzing Matilda. All around the green bush, far and free, to hump tent and pegs, a man needs both legs. No more waltzing Matilda for me. So they gathered the crippled, the wounded, the maimed, and they shipped back us home to Australia. The legless, the armless, the blind, the insane, those proud wounded heroes of Suvla. And as our ship pulled into Kirk Circular Quay, I looked at the place where my legs used to be, and thank Christ there was no one there waiting for me to grieve and to mourn and to pity. But the band, it played Waltzing Matilda as they carried us down the gangway. But nobody cheered, they just stood there and stared. And then they all turned their faces away. And so now every April I sit on my porch as I watch the parade pass before me. And I see my old comrades, how proudly they march, reviving old dreams of past glories. And the old men march slowly, all bones stiff and sore. They're tired old heroes from a forgotten war. And the young people ask, what are they marching for? And I ask myself the same question. But the band, it plays Waltzing Matilda, and the old men still answer the call. But as year follows year, more old men disappear. Someday no one will march there at all. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, who'll come waltzing Matilda with me? Bye bye.